Greetings and welcome to Mr. Ripper. I'm your host, Dave Makes Noises, and if you've ever had a moment in which you said, yeah, that's better than what I'd planned, so let's go with it, that's what today's video is about. Let's yeet this yeast. Players were presented with some information that suggested the NPC who hired them to fetch gems and relics out of an ancient tower via an archaeological dig was actually an eldritch being they needed to stop from eating the king. Now, the thing is, the NPC is an eldritch being, and although he is currently speaking with the king in a go talk to the boss and get this thing approved kind of scenario, he wasn't going to eat the king. But the plan of having the players roleplay politics or have a few days of downtime while the NPC got permission to keep the dig going didn't seem as exciting or as interesting as venture to the capital city and rescue the king from an eldritch being. So, currently the party is planning to break into the castle, sneak into the throne room, and ambush the eldritch being during his meeting with the king. Way more fun than politics. Not DM, but a player, and this is actually my character that it happened with. I originally thought my character was going to be on par with everyone else. I was wrong. They pretty much min-maxed. Like, my character was one of the weakest characters, and I was a rogue, so I went for a more social build, given I already had a high charisma, and all I'd have to do was multi-class into ranger for 3 levels to increase wisdom. And even before I took the 3rd level in ranger, I could get a plus 11 in intimidating and persuasion, and as soon as I took the 3rd level, I got plus 16 in those. At that moment, I realized how much better it is. Also, everyone else in the party had low charisma modifiers, so it just made my character more useful to the party, given the DM confirmed charisma was a good thing to have. Spoilers for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I'm running through a campaign that uses elements from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Tales of the Yawning Portal, and Homebrew based off of the game Sea of Thieves. The party included a rogue, a wizard, and a cleric. During the first session, the cleric died to a swarm of spiders and was unavailable for the next session. Rogue and wizard wanted to carry on due to cleric's character being dead and him giving us blessings to continue until he can return. So to counteract the squishiness of the party, they looked for a bit of muscle to hire. They ended up hiring the head guard of Saltmarsh's son, who I named Stevie. Stevie was skinny, weak, and pathetically jumpy, but he could fight. They ended up bypassing the rooms through stealth that included Sanballat, the boss, and his goons. They took out the hobgoblins and started to hear Sanballat coming to the rowboat storage room. They ducked into the boat, covering it with tarpaulins, and were discovered. At this point, the party, knowing they are outnumbered 3-1, decided to bluff their way out. They end up cursed, a homebrew thing, and told to bring Stevie's dad. They held Stevie hostage. They then decided to alert Stevie's dad and set up a full frontal assault on the mansion. Saltmarsh provided most of their guards for this, since Stevie's dad was head of the guard, and they went into battle. During said battle, fire traps and glyphs of warding went off, taking out 20 guards, then lone scouts took out 10 more, leaving 10 on each side of the field. In the end, Stevie was released, and after seeing his father take a flintlock to the skull, kicked a barrel of gunpowder over and threw an alchemist fire into the hole. I had planted 4 gunpowder kegs within the large room, allowing the party a simple, no witnesses style of victory. The downside to this victory was that any loot they could have recovered was blown to pieces too. So the chain reaction occurred, and only the party, a scout, and 2 bandits survived, although not for long. For the bandits, as they were killed immediately afterwards. The scout was elected new head of guard, and the party cleared out the mansion, eradicating the land base of the smuggling ring. What got me was, as soon as the party were cornered, it was all on the fly. I did not expect all this to happen, but that was the most well-deserved level up I'd given to a party. Not me, but my friend had a long-running space campaign that I was playing in. In one of the sessions, we encountered a huge monster that the DM had a hard time explaining because he wasn't prepared. He was saying words like spore, fungus, zombie-like creature. One of the players says, "Hey, aren't you just describing the flood from Halo?" The DM sighs and says, "Sure, why not?" This completely derailed the campaign into Halo references. During the campaign, we would hear stories about the Master Chief. We would occasionally fight flood-like creatures, etc. This turned into a running joke until we started a new campaign which was set in the Halo universe. We were Spartans trying to stop the Banished and protect the ring. It was pretty fun though. We had to do covert ops and stealth missions to stop the Banished and hurt their supply lines. TLDR, I accidentally completed a summoning ritual and then unleashed a kaiju by killing bad guys. Not a DM, but the player who triggered the event. My rather low-level party in a homebrew campaign heavily inspired by Magic the Gathering was sent to stop a ritual being performed by a demonic cult. Upon entering the dilapidated cathedral, we came upon the summoning already in progress. Our paladin charged up to the altar and began dismembering the cult leader, but the sounds of his chanting continued to echo through the church, and none of the other cultists seemed remotely bothered. All the casters failed their perception checks to figure out just what was going on. I, the impulsive impulsive fighter, decided it was time to actually do something. So I swung my sword at the cultists nearest to me and rolled a 3. I should note that the rules regarding dice rolls were a bit different due to the amount of homebrew. Had I rolled high, I would have whiffed. Instead, I decapitated 6 cultists with 1 swing. As it turns out, the ceremony required 5 sacrifices. To make a long story short, the Demon Lord was unleashed and began ravaging the countryside. This monster was so large that when we finally caught up to it and fought it a few sessions later, we had to use a party-sized bag of Tostitos wearing a Cubs hat as its mini. On the bright side, I, the only purely martial character in the party, now technically had the single greatest feat of summoning. I had expected my players to just heal a prince who had been poisoned by someone and go on with their lives and end up heading for the next town that afternoon, and didn't have much planned for that session other than revealing one of the big bad's henchmen on the trail they were going to be going down. The party wanted to investigate, and in my mind I was like, you know what? I'm going to improvise and let them investigate. When they asked the prince who he'd had the snack that had poisoned him with, the trail led to one of his non-noble friends, a monk, whose friend, the daughter of the head of one of the meaderies, had been charmed and controlled by the big bad's warlock henchman's son. She mentioned that she had been in a certain area of town before it happened, which led the party to an abandoned house that still had scraps of paper that turned out to be from his warlock tome. It also led to the party's life cleric revealing her history with that particular warlock. He was an ex who had murdered her whole family in a house fire after the breakup. This one is a bit complicated, but hold on tight and you can follow it through. In a Mass Effect campaign I ran, which was set right before the discovery of Mass Effect travel, one of my players played a Briar, a former Navy SEAL who was kind of a jerk and didn't seem to really care about his own life. His backstory was that he was the sole survivor of his squad after a failed mission and could never get over the survivor's guilt. One of those squad mates was Julie, whom Briar had formed a romantic relationship with. Briar's Session 0 was basically 2 flashback scenes. The first failed mission where Julie and the rest of his squad were killed, and then a second one later when Briar would end up killing a terrorist leader. In my original plan for Julie, she was going to get kidnapped and brainwashed into becoming a terrorist, becoming the leader of the terrorist organization whom Briar would later. This event was going to be how Briar became the disgruntled jerk of a person he was at the start of the campaign. But the player figured out what was coming right before the big reveal. After he shot the fuel tank of the truck the terrorist leader was driving away in during the second flashback, he went, "I go to the truck and pull her out, and I'm guessing it's Julie? Man, I would have had it be her sister or something." I kind of stopped for a moment and everything suddenly clicked into place. Yeah, that's pretty great actually, so as far as your character knows, he just killed his ex. Leave the rest to me. I later got to reveal all of my behind-the-scenes machinations. Julie was the twin sister of another PC's love interest, Hannah. Hannah was the actual leader of the terrorist organization who had been separated from the family at birth and never knew of her family until discovering her twin sister was a Navy SEAL. She infiltrated the SEALs posing as Julie so she could gather information about an impending raid on one of her compounds, then managed to get Briar and Julie's SEAL team set as the one to invade her compound so she could kidnap Julie. She intended to kill the rest of the team, but Briar survived. A third player was playing a younger woman named Olivia who had a sister who disappeared about 10 years before. That sister was Julie. The final piece of the puzzle, an NPC named Reagan, who had been with the party this entire time, was actually Julie. After kidnapping Julie, Hannah brainwashed her and put her through extensive body modifications to give her a different face/build and replace her arms/legs with mechanical ones. She served as the number 2 in Hannah's organization until Hannah was killed, at which point she turned herself in as state's evidence and became a consultant for the FBI, who then lent her to the SEALs. So in the span of about 5 minutes during some conversations going on about halfway through the campaign, 3 of the PCs suddenly had massive backstory info revealed, and all 3 had a collective what the fuck moment together. All because one of the players made an offhanded comment during his Session 0. Hello, you hearty hamburgers of coursing unending cosmic wisdom, and thank you for keeping those sweet buns here until the very end of this video. If you've had a moment that you just kind of rolled with because it was better than the original plan, we want to hear about it in the comments section below. And if you've got another story you'd like to share with the community and have a shot at getting narrated, our official subreddit, r/MrRipper, would be the place to post it, as you've got the best chance of our stellar script supervisor Scorpius finding it there. If you're looking for a group to play with, DMs are posting games that you could join all the time over at Mr. Ripper's Group Finder, a Discord server linked below that we've created to help you find a group. I hope this week you explore some uncharted territory in your subjective reality. We have a TikTok now, finally, and it's on and poppin' at MrRipper D&D. And of course, if you'd like to find me, I'm Dave Makes Noises on TikTok. Thank you again for watching till the end. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ding that dong if you're mad punctual, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace, love, and pancakes to all.